This review is full of wicked spoilers. If you have not seen the movie, please save this video and watch it later, please. Hey friends, it's Tyler. Happy Wicked opening, as promised. Now that the movie is released, we can talk about it. And boy, do I want to talk about it. I saw the movie for a second time last night. After initially seeing it at the premiere, compared to seeing it for the second time now, it was almost like a completely different experience for me. And I'm going to explain why in this video, hopefully without crying too much. Let's go! So if you watched my previous video, you'll know that I am a crazy, obsessed Wicked fan. Have loved the show for 20 years. Wicked fans get it. We're like obsessive people. It's just who we are, and I accept it. So because I am very dramatic, I will say once again, I think the first time I saw the movie was very overwhelming for me. It was filled of 21 years of expectation, such a deep knowledge of the stage version. Anytime something happened that wasn't the blueprint that I knew, even if I liked it, my brain was like, because it's different. I loved it the first time I saw it. I really, really loved it. But I feel like last night I was able to kind of go in with fresh eyes because I knew what was coming. The anxieties I had about the movie had been alleviated. I personally got so much more from this movie the second time watching it than I did the first time. I could talk about this for hours, but I'm gonna go through moment by moment and break it down a little bit. The opening sequence, where the melting has just occurred. This really just set up what we were in store for me. The epicness of that just really set the tone for the whole movie. As I said in my last video, one thing that I really, really love about the expansion of this movie is that all of the timeline of The Wizard of Oz and all of those tie-ins, I believe, are going to be so much cleaner and more explained in so much detail. And I absolutely love that we see in that initial moment, the melting has just occurred, and then we see Dorothy and the others going back to the wizard with the broom. To me, that just sets up what we're going to get in part 2. I can't wait to see the crossover of the timelines of the two stories. No One Mourns the Wicked is one of my favorite openings of any musical. I love the way they did it. I think the bubble was so clever. Having it be a mechanical vehicle that you could justify a human building, but relating it to the Wizard of Oz and it being an actual bubble was just incredible. Ariana Grande was the absolute correct choice for this role. The understanding that she has of this character and the emotional connection and the world of this story is just so deep, and it shows immediately. Absolutely love throughout the opening number how you catch the glimpses of her kind of breaking, still like very subtly, not showing too much emotion, but you see the hurt and what she has lost. I love seeing child Alphaba, child Nessa Rose, setting up from the very beginning what this person's life has been. I really think it was the correct choice to have animals be present in Alphaba's life from as a baby to establish that connection that she has with animals. And of course, Ari's opt up at the end of No One Mourns the Wicked. Ugh. I'm so glad we finally have a real recording of someone doing that. The transition back in time, this is kind of the main thing people are talking about, but the sheer size and scale of this movie, the sets, the use of CGI only when totally necessary is just really, really what the story deserved. And I am so grateful that it received that. Okay, so here's my thing. I'm gonna be so for real with you guys right now. Are you ready? Alphaba is my favorite character of all time, and I have always felt so connected to this character. I never got to see Adina play the role, but I have seen many clips and slime tutorials. Adina's Alphaba for me was perfect. I have seen so many incredible women play this role, and I've seen so many different choices, but what I really loved about Adina's Alphaba was the anxiety and the kind of unpredictable nature of her character, and that is what I really fell in love with Alphaba. When I first saw the movie, I thought Cynthia did an incredible job. But again, I guess because I had those preconceived ideas in my head, in the very first scene when we see Alphaba and Cynthia plays it very like, no, I didn't eat grass as a child, and yes, I've always been green. Like very matter of fact, and justifying this for myself. I think the first time I saw it, I had these preconceived ideas, and so I didn't allow myself to actually understand and truly feel what was happening in that moment. This time, watching it, I connected with Alphaba in a way that I have never connected with another Alphaba before that I've seen. Someone who's had to live this way their entire life, and anyone can relate to this, particularly if you are part of a marginalized community, is this kind of paradox between just because you're proud of who you are doesn't mean that you haven't been raised that this thing is wrong and this thing is hated. I really felt this internal struggle of you can be proud of who you are, you can be like, yes, I am green and I accept that, but that doesn't stop you from being human, and that doesn't stop you from thinking, okay, but like, what if I wasn't green? Because that's how we are with humans. Sometimes we feel great about ourselves and then sometimes we don't. And I love how Glenda was like, I can help you with the problem, and Alphaba's like, problem? I'm fine with being green. Throughout the journey, there are all these moments of dealing with that internal struggle. That's what I got from that moment anyway. So basically, I saw that moment and related to it in a completely different way, and that really, really set up how I felt about the journey that Cynthia takes with Alphaba throughout the whole thing. Which leads me to The Wizard and I, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, my second favorite song in Wicked. I did something I really wasn't expecting with this song. I burst into tears, and not just the kind of tears where you're like I had to grab my sweatshirt and like sobbed into it. And it was because I felt exactly what I was explaining. It's like in this moment, she has been given this opportunity, and it's like dealing with that thing that she's hated about herself. Hated that she has this power that she can't control. And then suddenly there's someone who's saying, no, this is a talent and this is a gift. And then to me, that's why it really hit when she says, meeting the wizard, he can make me normal. He can degreenify me, and I can be a normal person who also has this talent and this gift. And then it was like that internal struggle. I don't know if this is making sense, but I'm just going to keep rambling. The riffs, the vocal choices. So one of my favorite sayings that I've heard several people that I've worked with in musical theatre say, musicals are when we have nothing else to say, we sing. And then when we have no words left to say, we riff. I really felt all of Cynthia's riffs and vocal choices, and Ariana's, and everyone's, and Jonathan Bailey's as well, were completely justified because they all occurred in high emotional moments where I felt like that character needed to express something more than just a word. The mixture of Alphaba riffing and also using her power, doing that big leap through the air in The Wizard and I, then standing on the edge of the cliff, letting that note out in joy was just like, it was just so overwhelming. I burst into tears. What is this feeling? Loved. This was perfect for me. I really can't fault it. I like to identify as a strong mover in terms of dance. Musical theatre kids will get this. My favourite form of dance has always been tap. I love how tap utilizes all of the beats in a song. And I love how this choreography for What Is This Feeling, all of the steps were like on the beat of the music. Loathing truly deeply. Love that we get to see the different classes at Shiz, the ensemble work. This song for me was a really good example of bringing theatricality to the screen. I can't fault it. I love that we have time to explore the animals. That is what motivates Alphaba. I love how we get to see the deep connection. I think having actual animals, for me, it made that connection a lot stronger. Nothing that Dr. Dillerman did was seen as comical. It felt very discriminated against. I know in the musical, it's often played quite comically. His moments of turning into a goat were always like so shameful for him, again because of this deep-rooted hate that he has inside of him, and the shame and trauma and embarrassment when he knocks over the vase and when he mispronounces Glenda's name and he said, well, it's because we actually don't have two front teeth. So I felt more deeply about the animals being very discriminated against. Okay, let's jump forward to Dancing Through Life. Jonathan Bailey, I really do think he was the perfect choice. His ability to be so charismatic and unapologetically flirtatious with everybody is like hot. I really like the vocal choices that he made. The library scene was so good. Yeah, they all ate in that scene. That's all I can say about that. The Ozda scene, oh my god. I've spoken about this before. I'll quickly say this in case you haven't seen my other videos. So the first time I ever saw the show, the moment when Alphaba dances by herself, when I saw it, the entire audience was silent and everyone's heart was breaking for Alphaba. And that really, really affected me when I saw it all those years ago. But I think every single time I've seen it since then, that moment is always played quite comically. This isn't to criticize any actor who's played this role or the direction that the show has taken. This is just my personal view. I really do think that moment has lended itself more and more into comedy. Quite a lot of the time, Alphaba kind of comes out and starts like dancing, and there's like a lot of... And every time I've seen it, I don't think that moment has kind of hit the same, because then when Glenda goes and does what she does, it's never felt the same way for me. So I am so, so happy that for the movie, it went back to that, the way I feel like it was originally played and originally staged. Bawled my eyes out. I mean, that's what the show is about. It's about human connection and empathy and your core beliefs and core values of what you know to be right and wrong, and whether you're going to do something about it. I love when Glenda... Man, it makes me so emotional when Glenda turns into her friends and they're like, stop it now. And she looks at them and says, no, like this is the right thing to do. This is the person I want to be. Oh God, got me so much. Love, love, love. Okay, Popular was everything. I mean, I knew she was gonna nail it. I knew that Ariana was gonna nail it, and she did. This is gonna sound very egotistical. I'm sorry, I don't mean it to, but I feel like she performed it almost exactly how I would if I was in that situation. Completely honoring Kristen, especially, but honoring the Glendas that have come before while also making it her own. It was just perfect. The way that Cynthia's Alphaba was so open to this experience, and I feel this throughout, is that she never really... I know there's literally a song about loathing, but it was like she never made fun of Glenda or mocked Glenda for who she is. There was always a sense of openness and willingness to connect, willingness to listen. And I feel like I've seen different versions of Popular where Glenda is doing all her stuff and Alphaba's just kind of like, ugh. And I love how she was so open and receptive to this experience. And something I really felt from this is I actually think Glenda was successful in this moment. I think Alphaba was really won over by this moment. I do think that the tears and the going off at the end still comes from that internalized struggle of who she is and who she wants to be and who she wants to become. I love how after this scene, from this moment on, Alphaba actually is popular. And I think again in the musical, we just don't really get the moment to really see this. It's kind of implied, but I love from this moment on, going ahead after this, Alphaba is popular. Everyone likes her. Everyone is happy for her. I love after this, she's like walking down, everyone's like, hey Alphaba, and she's like, hi. But like, it worked. She is popular now, which I really, really loved. It worked. Good job, Glenda. You convinced her. I love in the classroom scene, the Dr. Dillerman getting taken away. The trauma of that moment was done so well. Oh, also, okay, I just had a huge light bulb. There's one thing about this movie that I was very, very disappointed about and actually upset about. I am so sad that we didn't get to hear my girl Keala Settle singing because I love Keala so much. She's from Aotearoa, New Zealand originally. I have followed her career for so long through Broadway and obviously Greatest Showman. And when I found out she was going to be in this movie, I was like, well, she has to sing. And we didn't get her singing, but she's amazing. I love her. And I do love that they kind of delegated those memorable moments. I'm really interested. I haven't really been able to analyze this enough in my head yet. What do you think the reasoning for the Miss Coddle, was it? The Miss Coddle character? What do you think the main reasoning was for that? I'd love to hear your opinions. I love that moment turned into the poppies, making everyone go to sleep. Perfect tie-in of The Wizard of Oz and the book. I'm Not That Girl, like, Cynthia is insane. The vocal choices, that internalized struggle of there are so many things I like about myself, but then also, you know, in that moment she says, do you think I like caring this much? Do you think I don't know how much easier my life would be if I didn't care this much? That song has always been so heartbreaking for me. It's always the line where she says, don't dream too far, don't lose sight of who you are. Oh God. Teenage me was falling apart to that line. Perfection. What can I say? I haven't touched on Michelle Yeoh yet. I think she was perfect. I am a huge fan of hers. The manipulation, especially seeing it a second time, after rewatching it and really understanding what's to come, the manipulation from the very beginning of how she's being so calculative with Alphaba, the moment that the wizard's invitation arrives and this emotional manipulation of, I'm so proud of you, you're so amazing, I have so much faith in you. Oh, it's so good and so gross when you know what's to come. This is like such a little moment, maybe. Watching this last night. So the moment that the invitation is arriving and Glenda and Alphaba grab hands and they're running through the corridor holding hands, I really believed in that moment that these were two young women. I think it's very impressive. Both of these actors are in their 30s. That young essence was really apparent, and I just thought that was a really sweet moment. Again, I love that Alphaba at this point is actually celebrated and everyone is like friends with her. I died at the little mustache man. Ariana was very funny in that moment. I thought that both Bok and Nessa were also very well cast. I really did believe that these were two people who did care deeply about each other, but just in different ways. I do think Bok is a genuine person. He's just in love with someone else. And I mean, we know that the vast majority of their story happens in the next part. I thought that moment before One Short Day, she introduced him to her father and all of that was very nice. One Short Day, how do I died. This is the biggest spoiler, so if you have not seen the movie and you have watched this far, I would very much suggest you don't ruin this moment for yourself. We knew that Adina and Kristen were going to be in this movie, and I really thought for a long time, I was like, it's gonna be like a 2-second cameo. Kristen will be Glenda's mother and Adina will be a very short cameo. I am so thrilled that they got to be a part of this movie in a way that completely enhanced the story and honored the original. I thought it was such a smart way to add context to the Grimoire and to the wizard and set up what is to come. I couldn't have asked for a better way for those two to be involved in the movie. I caught last night when the last thing we see of Adina is she guides Cynthia away, and it's like, that was the passing the baton, and I died. The scale of One Short Day was exactly what it needed to be. I missed the glasses. I did miss the glasses. That was like the only thing I will say. Just because I really like the concept, it kind of adds to the whole con of the Emerald City being like, wear these and everything will be green. Okay, so I have had a few different people who have seen the movie. I shall not name them because I love you all. my family. I've had a few people say that they weren't thrilled with Jeff Goldblum's performance, and I personally think that he was perfect. And here's what I felt from that performance. So I have always felt the wizard has been played as quite a sympathetic character. When he sings Sentimental Man, I've always felt that that's like genuine. He has been like, all I really wanted to do was just make people happy, and I wanted to be a father. And I don't see it. I have always seen it in quite a genuine way. And then when we find out what happens at the end of the play, I still feel like it's always been quite sympathetic towards the wizard. Whereas I despised this man. He was so narcissistic and indifferent towards Alphaba and what he was doing. And when he sang Sentimental Man, I did not believe a word he said. It was so fake and so gross, and it was perfect. I think that it was terrifying as well to see what this person has achieved, and relevant. So I really could not fault his performance. I thought it was incredible. There was a moment that I bawled my eyes out last night, and then this morning I thought about it and I cried again. When the wizard is saying, this could be your home, and then he gives her the doll, and Alphaba looks at it and is like, she's green. And then he's like, well, would that be your heart's desire? And she's like, the face that she does, and she's like, no. In that moment for me, she's like, everything has been worth it. Everything that I have gone through has led me to this moment and all of the struggles I had, and I am grateful for that. I am grateful for my life, that it has led me to this moment. And I just cried so much. Amazing. Which then makes what happens next so much, the betrayal, the absolute way that she is being used, just hit me so hard. For me, justified almost more than it ever has before when I've seen it. I've always got that moment and connected with it, but in that moment, it was just the absolute ultimate betrayal, and really helped me to justify what is about to happen next. Ariana, the way that she was just so emotionally available and connected, or I should say Glenda, her portrayal of Glenda was so open and emotionally connected to Alphaba and supportive and just giving. Perfect. Okay, here we go into Defying Gravity. Favorite song of all time, favorite scene ever in a musical. Have the tattoo of it on my back. The heightened stakes of this moment and the action of it, incorporating the hot air balloon, incorporating the monkey attack, was so well done and what it needed for the screen. The soundtrack was released today, and I was listening to the soundtrack, and which is generally what Glenda does as well, and Kristen did this. But what I really love about this moment is this is the first time that Ariana really went into that lower register, and her voice became much more grounded in that moment, which is what the scene needs, because Glenda is starting to develop and change as well. So many things. Incredible tension building in the scene. That moment between Alphaba and Glenda where Alphaba says, come with me, and you get a glimpse of what would happen if they teamed up and they went on. And then Alphaba again having that, I have this connection with someone who's going to, I've always been alone, but now I've made this connection with someone, and this person is going to help me to achieve what I want to achieve. And then that moment of Glenda saying no, and then Alphaba's understanding of, okay, I am solo, but I'm free. Knowing that she is going to be on this journey, the next stage of her journey by herself. but without no resentment from either side. It's just they want different things in this moment. And I thought that was very beautifully portrayed. Then we get the action sequence. Here's something really interesting. Are you ready for this conversation? And this is something I think a lot of people will be talking about. The moment when Alphaba, she's falling, and then she looks in the reflection and sees her child self. The first time I saw it, I got it. I think it's that same thing. I just wasn't expecting it, so it took me out of it a little bit. Like I was like, oh, she's connecting with like her inner child. Like, okay, yeah. I don't know. It didn't connect with me in that moment. And then I asked Michael afterwards, and he said to me, he was like, I thought that moment was amazing because if she hadn't connected to herself, she would have just fallen to her death. Because she's still discovering her power and her sense of self and being, and there's many ways to interpret that moment. But for him, it struck something in him. He connected in that moment of kind of seeing your younger self and taking care of that. And there's so many interpretations. But then I kind of was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way, or I didn't connect with that in that way in that moment in time. And then when I saw it again last night, tears, because I got it. And that moment made sense to me, and it was absolutely the right choice in that moment. I'm sorry if I ever questioned it. To have the iconic image of the large cape, I mean, we needed it. We needed it, and it was so good. The vocal choices that Cynthia made in this climax of Defying Gravity were perfect. And I've heard this song sung a million different ways, and why I have previously always favored Idina's is because there is a sense of triumph, but also a sense of anxiety, and in my opinion, it shouldn't feel joyful. It should feel triumphant, and it should feel climatic, but it shouldn't be like, oh yeah. I've heard it some ways where it sounds a bit too celebratory, and I feel like it needs to be aggressive and dangerous. I feel like it's a warning as well. She's saying, if you care to find me, look to the western sky, like I'm going to do this, but you better watch out. And I thought Cynthia nailed that as well. Triumphant, but not happy, if that resonates with anyone. Listening again, when you get that little interlude of the Unlimited. I need to listen to it again, but I love how it flashes back to Shiz and shows what's happening. I love how we see Nessa and we see the father collapse. The heightened stake of it, the wizard like shitting his pants, seeing what is happening. The anxiety and climax of that moment was exactly what it needed to be. The moment where Madame Morrible and Glenda hug. So good, so good. I didn't actually notice this the first time. I only noticed it yesterday. Is that then Madame Morrible is kind of like dragging Glenda off. You can just see the tactics change. The Madame Morrible's shift there of like, okay, what am I going to do next? Then, of course, the battle cry. I loved it from the moment I heard it. And going back to kind of what I was saying before, in my opinion, that moment is, I'm going to think of the right words, like as soon as I finish filming this video, I swear. Triumphant, but still dangerous. And I've heard that riff done a million different ways. Of course, I love the original. This is all just my personal opinion, but when I've heard it done ways like quite joyfully, to me it still needs to be like a warning. It still needs to feel dangerous. The raspiness of it and the note choices that Cynthia made, nailed it. Oof, and then that big to be continued sign and the original Wizard of Oz font, I'm dead. So I clearly give this movie like a 1000 out of 10. I really, really do believe that this movie is going to have a huge impact on musical movies going forward. My biggest thing that I've always said is when you are adapting these things that are so beloved, you have to honor it. You have to honor it, and you have to, for me, I want to see something that is representative of the thing I love without getting too critical of other things. Les Mis was a really good example of me being disappointed, because to me personally, Les Mis is a big soaring opera. What I love about it is that the orchestrations and the vocals are so intense, and then for the movie version to make everything sucked in, which worked for a lot of people and a lot of people liked it. I just also like the pacing was completely gone. I love in Les Mis how it's always like da 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 da, and in the movie it's like da, da, da. It just wasn't what we know. It was like its own version. And then the Lion King live action, when they basically completely cut Scar's song, which is like, that scene had such an impact on my childhood with the green billowing geysers and the smoke, and that was just all gone in the live action. And I really think what I am so happy about with Wicked, which is what everyone is really saying, is that it was just building on what already existed. And I really don't think that nothing about this was drastically changed. It felt like it existed on its own, but so clearly represented and celebrated the thing that we all know and love so much. And so that is my review on Wicked Part 1. Yay! Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know down in the comments what you thought of this film. I'm going to be having conversations about this film until Part 2 comes out in 1 year's time. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!